Welcome back. So this is the second part of our lecture, Segregation and Ethnic Residential Mobility. So does the classical assimilation model apply to Chinese, right? So we have these affluent Chinese, they're moving to Flushing, New York, but it essentially becomes sort of like a Chinese-dominated area as well. Now I want you to think about it. Can Chinese or Asians in general, are they typically American? Can they assimilate? Do Americans think of Asians as Asian Americans in America? And so here, I want to show a clip of controversial Alexander Wallace. If anyone's seen this, it kind of went viral. She was saying something about Asians in the library at UCLA. So I'm certain some of the Asians were Asian Americans, but she kind of clumps them together. And so let me think what you think.
Okay, so here at UCLA, it's finals week. So we know that I'm not the most politically correct person, so don't take this offensively. I don't mean it towards any of my friends. I mean it towards random people that I don't even know in the library. So, you guys are not...
That's always bad when they say, I don't mean my friends. Not my best friends.
Problem. The problem is, these hordes of Asian people that UCLA accepts into our school every single year, which is fine, but if you're going to come to UCLA, then use American manners. So it used to really bug me, but it doesn't bother me anymore, the fact that all the Asian people that live in all the apartments around me, their moms and their brothers and their sisters and their grandmas and their grandpas and their cousins and everybody that they know that they brought along from Asia with them comes here on the weekends to do their laundry, buy their groceries, and cook their food for the week. It's seriously without fail. You will always see old Asian people running around this apartment complex every weekend. That's what they do. They don't teach their kids to fend for themselves. You know what they don't also teach them is their manners, which brings me to my next point. Hi. In America, we do not talk on our cell phones in the library. Where every 5 minutes, I will be, okay, not 5 minutes, say like 15 minutes. I'll be like deep into my studying, into my political science theories and arguments and all that stuff, getting it all down, like typing away furiously, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, when I'm about to like reach an epiphany, over here from somewhere, oh, Jing Chong Ling Long Ting Tong. Oh. Are you freaking kidding me? In the middle of finals week. So being the polite, nice American girl that my mama raised me to be, I kind of just gave him what anybody else would do, that kind of like, you know, it's the library, like we're trying to study, thanks. And then it's the same thing 5 minutes later, but it's somebody else, you know. I swear they're going through their whole families, just checking on everybody from the tsunami thing. I mean, I know, okay, that sounds horrible, like I feel bad for all the people affected.
All right, so I think you get the drift. All right, so here you see the controversial viral film clip of Alexander Wallace talking about Asians in the library and how they're loud. She kind of clumps them together. And so you see how she doesn't really make any distinction between Asian Americans and Asians. So very interesting. So here I want you to think of, can Asian Americans assimilate? Do people think of them as American? Right? And if that's the case, how does that affect their structural and residential mobility? All right, so assimilation. Take a look. This is a classic model. It's called the melting pot. Okay? We all are coming together with our different cultures, but we melt together as one and we become American. Okay? So if I had a student here, I'd ask you to read read the page 60, so you can read it yourself. So this is one of the models that we are all going to assimilate together. Now the other model, of course, is the salad. Right? We're together, but we all retain our kind of our own distinctive. Okay. All right. So here, ethnic enclave. Does that mean ethnic segregation? So throughout the class, I want to ask you: is Chinatown a form of redlining? Is an ethnoburb a Chinatown? And is even an ethnoburb, is that a part? Is that a some sort of argument or some sort of redlining itself? If you look at the history of Monterey Park, Japanese Americans were interned, and Mexican Americans were not allowed to buy in certain parts of LA. right? And so Monterey Park was a new development. It was a brand new development that was not redlined. So after the internment, the Japanese, the only place really that they could buy or they could live was Monterey Park, right? And for Mexicans who are wealthy, middle class, that was one of the only places they could buy a house. So again, right now Monterey Park is traditionally Latino and Asian, primarily Chinese. And so is that also a form of redlining? Okay, if you look at the history of these cities, like why are these cities traditionally Asian or Latino? There is kind of a history. Is there ethnic flight? We talked about last time South LA, how it was traditionally originally it was actually Native American, and the Americans were people tried to kill them. The Americans tried to kill them and force them off the land. But after that, voluntarily there were Anglos, and the Anglos were joined by Jewish Americans, and there was some flight, and we talked about how African Americans had to sue their way with lawsuits to live in South Central. And then there was actually white flight we talked about, and how once it goes over 20%, the population pretty much will change. If the ethnic population is over 20%, a lot of populations will leave. And now it became primarily African American. But now we have something called black flight, right? So a lot of the African Americans who are living in the upper middle class African Americans are selling their homes to Mexicans because there's black flight, right? They don't want to live with Latinos. So again, is there ethnic flight? So please, if you want to write that book, I would love to read it. Okay, it's ongoing, happening right now. All right, so there's resident mobility and resegregation. Okay, is there? Okay. Now, why are the New York Chinese so concentrated in the city, right? Remember, they were not allowed to live other places, okay? And many places in America, actually, you tend to see more diversity in the city because, structurally the jobs are there, right? And also that's where the cheaper homes sometimes inner cities, the crime rate is higher, and so the places to live there are cheaper, right? So there's actually a host of reasons why the Chinese would be concentrated in the city. You'd be closer to your child's school, you'd be closer to your job, it is cheaper to live there, and you just don't have the funds to live outside of, let's say, Chinatown. All right, so what did the Chinatown provide jobs to who? Well, they provide jobs to mothers who have to be close to their kids. Sometimes there are sweatshop jobs where they do sort of violate a lot of labor laws. There are restaurant jobs for males, right? So you can tell they're very working class jobs, clerical jobs, grocery store bagger jobs. And so Chinatown actually provides a lot of jobs, particularly through the restaurants and the stores. And that actually can support a family. So Chinatown itself is a huge economic mobility increaser for ethnic Chinese who come from other parts of the world. And it might be, yes, low income to everyone else, because I'd like to guarantee you that they're not making minimum wage, but it is more than what they had from their country of origin. And when you're a new immigrant arrival, sometimes you'll take whatever you can get. And it's obviously not fair in some senses because it doesn't give you full health care, etc., but it is more than what they came from. All right, so let's look at family and kinship ties. Now, usually the assimilation model posits that families move out of Chinatown once they have children. Nowadays, new Chinese immigrants actually are moving into these ethnoburbs, right? And actually, in our current Chinatowns, actually new Chinese double ethnic minorities are moving into Chinatown. So it's pretty interesting. And actually, I usually go around the class and I always ask students who lives with their mom and dad. And the students at Cal Poly are very diverse. Every single type of student, and pretty much all the students raise their hand, they live with their parents. And I always say, you are smart because you're saving a lot of money. And so nowadays, a lot of people actually live with their family members, and which is like saving you $14,000 a year, which is tremendously great. So again, this model actually doesn't really even apply to Cal Poly students, because the model is you assimilate, you move out of your parents' house, you're 18, never to return. So again, you can see that a lot of people are still using these kind of family kinship ties still at Cal Poly, and I'm sure if you're at another Cal State, you as well. All right, guys, so that's the end of this lecture. Thank you so much, and I will see you in a few minutes.